They had a nuclear war here on the Earth, and they blew the Earth away. And as a result, they created a nuclear winter that froze this planet solid as the Rock of Gibraltar in an event that your scientists call Snowball Earth, during which time you could have walked from Africa to South America and never once got your feet wet. And it remained that way for millions and millions of years. So to these reptiles, this was the worst possible scenario. And at some point, they completely abandoned the Earth and never even looked back. You know, they actually went out into other star systems and colonized a number of worlds, and they had a really long history, but at some point, they decided that all the good worlds were already taken. They already had forms of man living on them. So they decided that they were going to conquer the galaxy, and the place that they wanted to start was our planet. Our planet was about 20 times the size of the Earth, but it had 11 moons, so it didn't quite have 20 times the gravity, even though the gravity was significantly higher. But a number that comes into play all the time for us is the number 26. It's a lucky number for us. You know, you think that the number 13 is bad luck, right? But if you add two 13s together, two negatives make a positive. It's 26. You know, the galaxy takes 26,000 years to rotate one time. The thing is that our planet was 260 million miles from the Earth. And we had about 260 different countries. And we had a year that was actually 1,040 days in length, but we split it up like a leap year so that we had a calendar that was only 260 days in length, but there were 4 of them back to back, and that was a year to us. And our year had 10 months, and each of the 10 months was made up by 26 days, and our days were 26 hours in length. And one of the things that people ask all the time is about the surface temperature. Well, you know, we were so far away from the sun that, you know, the sunlight only affected maybe 10 to 15% of our actual surface temperature. The majority of our surface temperature was the result of geothermal heat radiating out from the planet. And our planet, which was covered in these massive oceans, all these oceans were like heated swimming pools. So that's one of the things that people will have a hard time understanding. Our planet was very, very unstable. We had earthquakes on almost a daily basis. And it went on like this for, you know, hundreds of thousands of years. And we developed really extraordinary technologies, and we got the whole planet under control and started using all of the natural forces to our benefit. And the whole planet was just covered with fruits and vegetables. We had lots of land, we had lots of food, but we didn't have war. That's something that people need to know. We didn't even have a word for war in our language. You know, we had lost so many people in catastrophes. You know, the idea of one of us killing one of our own kind was abhorrent to us. So, you know, we had this huge military. It was like a United Nations military. And we had Army and Navy, but they were there to take life. They were there to save life. Our Army was like the Army Corps of Engineers. And our Navy and the Air Forces would deliver food where it was needed or would evacuate people out of catastrophically hit areas, you know. We had our planet completely down to where we turned it into a total utopia. There was no wars on our planet. We did have firearms, admittedly, but that was because some of the wild animals on our planet were quite vicious. You know, we had stuff that was so big and so mean, they could have used one of your grizzly bears to pick its teeth. So we did have firearms, but we didn't have war. The thing is that we had 11 moons, and we had started colonizing these 11 moons, and we had, like international space stations and that kind of thing, and we were picking up transmissions that were going from Mars out into the farthest reaches of the galaxy, and there was these reptilian people, and they were talking about the shortages of food and material, and they were always complaining that they were starving, and they were a lot of them were hibernating. They hibernated for years at a time, and we made the mistake. We didn't understand because we didn't know what a war was. We called them, and we invited them to come over. We told them, we've got a lot of land here, and we've got food everywhere. If you can get used to fruits and vegetables, we can even provide cattle and other things because, we're not vegetarians ourselves, to be honest, We're not very predatory, not like some people, but we invited them to come over, and they did. They came in mass. They began massacring us.
What kind
by
of
the billions?
Hallucinogenic?
Hold on, Bruce.
What?
Yeah. Okay.
Bruce, let him ask you some questions, please.
Can I ask some questions from the chat room?
Sure.
One is, who are you hiding from? And I thought it was the Greys or somebody. I don't know.
No, okay, Bruce.
Lynn.
I put in the chat room, Bruce, that you're staying in a hotel. That story is a long story because they burned down his house 2 times. But anyway, you're kind of in hiding at the moment, right, Bruce? I mean, you don't really want the government knowing where you're exactly located. Is that correct?
Well, I was telling him that I lived on a mountaintop for 7 years in a tent, and I was completely off the grid. And the government, they searched and searched and searched, and they couldn't find me. So they lit the entire mountain on fire.
So what you're saying is the government and the Greys are working together, and that's why they're after you? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Who is after you?
No, they're not after me because of what I am. They're after me because they don't want me telling you the story that I'm telling you right now. They don't want the public to know the real truth. They don't want the public to know that there are
Bill Cooper
billions of people on Mars. You know the story of the Europeans and the Indians?
Yes.
Slaughter. When the Europeans came over, they took over this country.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, there's a civilization on the planet right next to you. It's populated by billions of people, and they're massively superior to human beings. They have advanced technologies that you couldn't even guess at. They could blow the whole surface of this planet away and not get a scratch. And the government's afraid that if they even admit that they really exist, that it will cause a calamity and the world will collapse. They're worried about a worldwide public panic taking place and rioting in the streets and all that kind of thing. So they have gone to great lengths to keep the public from knowing that we're there. But I want to say, for the record, we are not hiding from you. We have been doing everything. We have flown our battle stars over cities like Phoenix. We have sent flights of UFOs over Washington, D.C. in 1952. We have done everything possible to try to tell people who we are, where we're at, what we're doing. But there's so many aspects. They can't just come down here and breathe the air, because that's one of those 9 steps, the 9 obstacles. You know, if the people from Mars came over here and breathed the air, the germs would kill them. There's a lot of aspects taken into consideration, you know. So the way that they figured that they could take a first step at communicating with human beings is by putting people like me around the planet living amongst the human populations. There are aliens living amongst you that look just like human beings, except for my ears and the fact that my teeth were different. And, you know, there's other genetic differences, but you wouldn't see them. You know, there's stuff on the inside. You know, I have 2 arms, 2 legs, you know, a body like everybody else. You know, the only thing that would make me stand out is my pointed ears. You know, incidentally.
Hey, can I cut in? Hey, man, this is Young Nasty, man. I got a question for you, Bruce. So you're saying you are an alien? Is that what I'm picking up right now? But you only have pointed ears? I mean, explain to me that. Can you explain that to me? I've just jumped into the group chat. I didn't hear anything you said before. Please explain to me what makes you different.
He did.
Well, my race look European in appearance, except that we all have pointed ears. But 40,000 years ago, the Simian nation was wiped out almost to extinction. 95% of the
36
Simian
rows of
nation
teeth
was wiped out.
Or 36 teeth instead of 32 as well.
Yes. Yeah, my teeth are different than yours. My ears were different, you know. I have hearing differences and sight differences, but it's minor differences. The thing is that in order to prevent your extinction, we interbred with the Simian nation to prevent them from becoming extinct, because there wasn't enough of them left alive to repopulate the species. All of their biodiversity had been wiped out. There was a few thousand breeding pair left, but there wasn't enough to repopulate the species. And in a relatively short period of time, you began showing the undeniable side effects of inbreeding, the first symptom of which is mental retardation. So in an effort to prevent your extinction, we did genetic modifications to you by giving you snippets of our DNA and mixing it with your DNA, and we were successful in preventing any further decline in your species. But as a result, we changed you from apes into the image that you are now, which is virtually identical to us, except that you have 32 teeth where we have 36, and you have round ears where we have pointed ears. See, you have some of my DNA in you right now. But 97% of your DNA is identical to a chimpanzee.
So then what is... My bad to interrupt. What is your race that you're speaking of?
I'm Nephilim. I'm a race that evolved naturally on the 5th planet of this star system.
So the Nephilim...
I am not here.
Are they different from the giants from the Bible, or are you speaking of the same species?
No, those were our children. When we started interbreeding naturally, I mean, not in a laboratory setting, you know, when we found some human female and said, well, I'd like to go have sex with this woman, you know, quite often the children would have birth defects. And it was the birth defects that led to the giganticism.
Okay.
So some of these children that we had ended up 8, 9, 10 feet tall. But,
what do the Anunnaki have to do with all
anymore.
this? What about
we don't do that anymore.
I meant to ask you before, how do the Anunnaki fit into all this, and can you speak any of those other languages?
No, not presently. Not this time around. I don't know, maybe. Maybe I do, maybe I don't know it. But, you know, our people only speak one language. So I don't know where, and your people used to only speak one language. In fact, for centuries, your people didn't even use their vocal cords. In fact, your vocal cords you got from us in the first place anyway, because primates don't have vocal cords. All the traits that you have, your feet are webbed now, and they're designed like two perfect paddles, perfect for swimming.
Oh, actually, for me, I thought you said earlier. I thought you said earlier that your people speak telepathically.
They do. That's what I was saying. They don't need to speak in words. They can communicate whole ideas and mind lock with each other. And that's how human beings used to be. Your people, when you were apes, your people were smarter than you are now. When the people on this planet were apes, they were readily using technologies that you couldn't even guess at. And there's the thing, because I had to be put through a process where they systematically shut down percentages of my brain cells until they got me down to a level low enough that I could communicate with you on your level.
Okay, also I asked about Anunnaki. What do you know about that?
Well, that's the word that Zecharia Sitchin uses, in his writings. But that was something that I mentioned to Eric. When King James decided to translate the Bible into English for the first time, he had like 85 linguistic experts all checking each other's work, and they all had to agree with each other before they put it down into the Bible, and they wrote the King James Bible. Yet despite that, they still mistranslated things, and they still made mistakes. Here you have Zecharia Sitchin. He's supposedly translating stuff out of those Sumerian texts, and he's doing it all by himself. Nobody's checking his work. And if you ask anybody who actually is an expert in Sumerian languages, every one of them will tell you that they do not agree with his translations.
That's out of this world.
And I would guess that probably over 60% of what he had to say was wrong. But the one thing good about what he did was that he brought to the attention of the human population the fact that we were people
Marvin,
from other planets.
Sorry,
I'll give you an example.
Settle down.
In the Sumerian texts, it repeatedly states Kemet is the mother of us all. It's used in the exact same tense as when you say Mother Earth, and it was repeated over and over and over again. We're not from this 10th planet that's out there in the Oort cloud. We were right here. We had an orbit. Our planet existed for, like 4.5 billion years, just like your planet. We thought our planet would exist forever. But it was destroyed by the Greys. They had technology really advanced, and they sent a planetary body on a collision course with our homeworld, which is where the planet of the crossing symbols and all that comes from, because our homeworld and this body, well, it destroyed my planet, and it killed 49 billion people. And ever since then, we've been at war. And that was 53,000 years ago. And we've had massive battles here. 40,000 years ago, the world was very different than you imagine it now, because only about 45 to 50% of the planet was underwater at the time. There was a lot more land mass, and half the population was apes, and the other half were extraterrestrials. So you had half the population were simian, and the other half were Nephilim. And the population here on this planet exceeded 16 billion. And all of those people were massacred 40,000 years ago. The civilization that was here on this planet 40,000 years ago was completely erased, just the way the World Trade Center was erased by those directed energy weapons. You know, this planet was annihilated, and there wasn't a single living survivor. The people who are here now are descendants of a remnant of apes that we took to Mars, that lived amongst us. We did the genetic hybriding.
What was the civilization like? The apes before? Can you please tell us what the civilization was like before they got annihilated? How advanced were they?
Good question. Good question.
You know what? Here's an idea for you. Okay. Technology was like it is now. It wasn't located in one place. The whole planet was covered in technology. They had factories here that were so big, you could have put modern-day companies like McDonnell Douglas, Boeing, or Airbus all put together inside of just one of their buildings. They had literally millions of employees. And you know what they manufactured? Starships. They manufactured starships, the X-class starships.
It's going to be a break here, I think.
So, and they did that for a long time.
Yeah, we're coming right up to break.
On average, every 20, 25 years,
okay, hang on
we put out a new class of starship. And we make a couple 100,000 of them.
We're going to go to break.
And all we do is we just add one number. You know, it'll be like an X-117.
Shout out to Craig Rude. Hey, shout out to Political Woodstock. A-hole Skeptic. Shift Happens. Karen McIntyre. Mood Boy. Hercules.
Watch out, Farmer Johnson's got salt shot.
Anywhere I forgot, I'll get you back later. Bam. Rock on with the Wolfman. Take this one.
Farmer Johnson's got a shotgun, running naked through a cornfield. Something came in the middle of the night, stole moonshine from his stick. There's burn marks in a circle, strange signs upon the ground. He thinks the aliens have touched down in our little town. We know crop circles in the moonlight mean us boys have been around to show the girls a little good time, spinning tires in the soft ground. Crop circles round a campfire, we're gonna smolder a little grass. But watch out, Crazy Johnson's got salt shot to pepper you. Johnson took his hat off, open mic at the town hall. Said we're visitors sitting among us from somewhere beyond the stars. You'll know them cause they like trouble, they drink our beer, they like fun. I even seen them with the mayor's daughter, driving around in a local boy's truck. Oh, but we know crop circles in the moonlight mean us boys have been around. Show the girls a little good time, spinning tires in the soft ground. Crop circles round a campfire, we gonna smolder a little grass. But watch out, Crazy Johnson's got salt shot to pepper you. He says they're gonna beam us up, take us in our trucks. They're gonna beam us up, experiment on us. They're gonna beam us up, take us in our trucks. They're gonna beam us up, experiment on us. Crop circles in the moonlight mean us boys have been around. Show you girls a little good time, spinning tires in the soft ground. Crop circles round a campfire, we're gonna smolder a little grass. Watch out, Crazy Johnson's got salt shot to pepper you. Yeah, girls, we're gonna beam you up, take you in our trucks. Beam you up, experiment on love. We're gonna beam you up, take you in our trucks. We're gonna beam you up, experiment on love.
Guys, we're going back on. We are going back on right now, okay?
7 years.
Blaze it up. Blaze it up. Oh, yeah. Blaze it up. I'm going to blaze it up at 4:20 in the morning. All right. Yeah. We're back.
Okay, Ken.
On Monster Castle Paranormal Radio.
A couple things I was going to say here.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Remember to go to #47Talk and Twitter for live interaction. You can also interact with us live in the Spreaker chat room. If you're listening, you're either hearing us on Spreaker or TuneIn Radio on Monster Castle Paranormal. Go ahead, sir.
You know, the Bible refers to our race as fallen angels.
Yes.
Okay? And it also refers to the serpents as fallen angels.
Correct.
But what people don't grasp is that it also refers to human beings in the same terms. You know, when you think of angels, like the beings that live with God, those are called the cherubim and the seraphim. We are a flesh and blood race of man that evolved on another planet.
All right, my bad to interrupt, sir. What's your name again? Is it Bruce?
Yes, it's Bruce May. But my real name is Orion.
How did you figure out that your real name was Orion and that you're a part of a network?
Orion. Oh, I know who I was.
How did you? How did this all come about to where you were definitely, this is what I am, this is definitely what it is? I mean, how did that happen? Tell me that, please.
Well, that's kind of hard to tell. Let me see if I can put this for Eric at least. Eric, you saw the picture that I told you was of me as a 10-year-old kid, right?
Yes, I did.
Yes. It's a Mount Rushmore. It's on Mars. And people have labeled it the demon head. But it's not a demon head. It's a 39,000-year-old Mount Rushmore kind of thing. And it was supposed to be representing me when I was a little boy because I had an event happen. You know, I was here on the earth 40,000 years ago. And when I was 10 years old,
all right,
I was in a class in an elementary school, and I kind of had this crush going on this girl, and this teacher had the boys on one side of the room and the girls on the other side of the room, and she was talking about the differences between boys and girls, you know, like when guys look at their fingernails, they curve their fingers toward them, you know, and look at their fingernails that way. When a woman looks at her fingernails, they hold their hands away from them and look at their fingernails that way. A man will strike a match towards him. A woman strikes a match away from them, you know. It was this kind of conversation was going on. The teacher was talking about the differences between boys and girls.
All right.
Well, the thing is, they started carpet bombing.
Which is
and we didn't even see them coming because they came out of wormholes. They were cloaked. They just appeared out of nowhere and just started bombing us. And the skull
He's
I was
talking about
setting
the
in
Greys
got
right
hit
now,
with this huge
when the Grey
bomb.
reptilians started bombing your planet, is what you're referring to, correct?
No, it was Earth. I was on Earth, right here,
on Earth.
30,000
Okay.
years ago.
Who was bombing Earth at that time? Then who was that?
The Greys, the reptilians. The Greys are the reptilians.
So how
See,
do
that's how you know people don't know what they're talking about when they say things like the Greys and the reptiles. The Greys are the reptiles.
Hey, Bruce, let me interject, okay? How does Bruce know this happened? The Bruce that's 60-some years old right now, how does he know this has happened? How did you figure this out, Bruce?
No, it's in my memories. I'm a clone. I was alive 40,000 years ago. I'm a major person. So they took cells from my body, and they cloned me, and they brought me back from the dead. And they cloned me amongst humans. Here's another little minor thing for you. You know, the government of the United States and all the other countries, for that matter, won't allow us to come here. They don't even admit that we even exist. So we kind of bent the rules a little bit because you have laws here that says that anybody born here is an American.
Exactly.
And is supposed to have all the rights of being an American. So they picked my parents. My mother was a surrogate. You know what a surrogate is, right?
Yeah.
She was implanted with an embryo, and it came full term, and she gave birth to me. And the thing is, you know, during my babyhood, I didn't remember all this stuff. But I had an event that was very strange, and I was trying to tell the story, getting back. Can I get back to the original thing?
I mean,
okay, hold on. Then time out. Just let me say this real quick.
I want to know what the event is, what happened. That's what I thought you were talking about when you talked about you were in
he's going to get to that right now. This is an event that occurred that kind of woke up your memory in a sense. Is that correct?
I want to know if it was like a baptism.
Yes. No, I got.
You know, if
he
was baptized sick. And
I got very sick when I was 7 years of age.
Okay, talk to me.
And at the time that I was sick, at the age of 7, you know, there wasn't a lot of medical facilities. You know, things were very different back then. You know, I'm an old guy. You guys don't realize how old I am, but you know, back then they didn't have paramedics. They didn't have ambulances. You know, if they had to transport somebody to the hospital, they would call the local funeral parlor, and he'd come over and transport you in a hearse. And if you needed a doctor and you couldn't go to the hospital, there was a doctor that would come to your house, and he'd walk in with a little black bag. And that's the way it was back then. The thing is,
that must have hurt a lot.
I was 7 years old, and my temperature shot up to 105. So all the people in my neighborhood were afraid that the little boy was going to die, you know. And they all pitched in their ice cube trays, and they filled my bathtub full of ice cubes and water, and they laid my body down into this water to break my fever. And it was while I was in that ice water that all of my memories seemed to be restored. I suddenly woke up and realized that I was 7 years old again. Now, I want to go back, you know, if you don't mind, to 40,000 years ago, okay? Can I? Are you ready?
Oh, hello? Yeah. We're ready for this.
We're ready.
I'm loving it.
You know, a bomb hit this elementary school where I was sitting, and the entire building collapsed on top of all of us, including me. And I had turned and was looking in the direction of the blast when a piece of metal shrapnel ripped across my face and cut my face at an angle, going from my forehead down across the top of my nose ridge and going down my cheeks. And it cut me to the bone, and it knocked me out.
Damn.
I dug myself out of the rubble, trying to make this story quick, and I went and I found this girl that I had this crush on, and I dug her out. But while I'm doing all this, all hell is breaking loose because there are tanks approaching on my position, and our guys are coming forward, so I got artillery shells going back and forth in both directions. The sky is full of jet fighters. Our guys, their guys, all shooting and firing at each other. And I picked up this little girl, and I carried her for miles in my arms. And I got her, I'm sorry, still chokes me up.
Wow.
I got her behind enemy lines. I got her into a safe zone, and I got her to a hospital, and she was in a coma for 3.5 weeks.
What war was this?
They let me sit with her for the 3.5 weeks. I never had any surgery, you know, because there was literally millions of casualties, you know, and so I never got this scar on my face fixed. You know, they just basically put, you know, tape on my face and taped my face back together.
So you're a veteran.
Over me.
Eric, is he a veteran then? This gentleman a veteran?
You what?
No. Okay, hold on. Bruce,
this is 40,000.
You're talking about
40,000 years ago.
Right?
Oh, okay. All right.
40,000 years ago.
Okay, but the story you're telling right now, because I think people got lost.
One day I was whispering into that girl's ear, and I told her, I said, "You can't die on me." I said, "We're going to grow up together. We're going to get married, and we're going to have a whole bunch of kids." And she spoke for the first time in 3.5 weeks. And she said, "Really? How many kids are you expecting us to have?" You know, and I kind of leaned over and I kissed her on the lips for the first time. And I was 10 years old. And I married that girl. And I had about 15. But the thing is that a major evacuation, we had an evacuation in progress because we knew that they were going to pull out all the stops and they were intending to annihilate the entire surface of the earth. So we were trying to get as many people off the surface as we could. So we had hundreds of thousands of ships that were packed with people. You know, the ship I was riding in was one of the latest off the assembly line. It was an X-124. It was state-of-the-art for the time. If the ship existed today, it could take out the entire United States Air Force and not got a scratch. That thing was really heavily armed, and it was state-of-the-art, but unfortunately, it got blown out of the sky over the surface of Mars, and it crashed onto the surface of Mars. And then we became surrounded by these Greys who were intent on taking what we had on our cargo hold. So we evacuated all the women and children, but unfortunately my wife didn't go with them because my wife was a surgeon. And she stayed at this battle site while this massive battle was taking place because it was basically the end of the world. It was our own version of the Alamo. We either hung on or we'd all be extinct. And I'm afraid to tell you that my wife was killed there, and her body is still lying there. You know, bodies don't decompose on Mars. That battle site is still there, and the United States government photographed the whole thing with the Spirit rover on Sol number 513. That's a major battle site. There were thousands and thousands of bodies there, and the guys, the technicians at NASA, doctored all those pictures. They erased all of our cities. They erased all the stuff. They don't want you to know what's really going on. The thing is that 40,000 years ago, I was so grief-stricken by the loss of my wife that I did something that was kind of born of insanity. I built an actual functional doomsday bomb. And it was called a Ramothra. And I delivered it myself personally to that capital world that those serpents had. And on one day, I'm going to remember that over forever. 65 billion people. And I had already killed over 10 billion of them previously on 2 other planets. I destroyed a number of planets. And in the process, I prevented the extinction of over 150 different races of man, including human beings. The thing is, the Earth was wiped out, so it took a while to clean the Earth up, get it livable again.
Bruce,
yes?
What happened to your children?
Oh, and also, where are the people of Mars living? Are they under the surface? From Craig Rue in the chat room.
Oh, we have, most of our stuff is underground. There's not a whole lot of differences. Like where you have a house, like on a street, you might walk out the front door and go down the street. We have stuff like that, except that you don't go out into the street. You go down, and there are subway systems underground, and tunnels and roads.
So you're on the surface.
Over 90% of our cities are underground.
Okay, but there is surface stuff.
We still cover the surface.
And you don't okay, is the atmosphere breathable? Is the atmosphere breathable?
Bruce, time out. Let him ask you a question, please.
Is the atmosphere breathable on Mars?
Not totally.
So when you go to the surface,
the atmosphere has to be a minimum of 5% oxygen, and I'm afraid it's only about 4%.
Okay,
but it's enough that if you took off your space helmet, you wouldn't die immediately.
That's what I thought.
You'd
Actually,
hang in
that's
for
a good
about
answer.
An hour.
That was the right answer.
You could walk around on the surface for about an hour.
That was the right answer. He gave the right answer, Eric. Pretty good. That's pretty good. When I give you the toughies, you're giving the right answers so far. And some of the other stuff's way out there, though.
Darren's on the call now, right? Is
yeah.
Darren on the call?
Also,
I'm
Darren, what was that question you had?
I wanted to know what happened to his 15 children. Did they perish too?
No, most of them survived. They went on. They all had families of their own. They had 15 kids, and their 15 kids had 15 kids, and they're still, the descendants, my descendants are still alive. That's what I was telling you. Our current population exceeds 111 billion. And we are dispersed on hundreds of worlds.
And how many are on Mars? How many are on Mars?
I don't have an exact number, but if I had to guess, I think it's somewhere in the area of 6 billion.
Yeah.
How do they make food?
Oh, it's not as complicated as you think. You've heard of the glass domes. We have these huge glass domes, and they're like 20 miles across, some of them, But we only put these glass domes over the farmland. So they're basically just like big, giant greenhouses.
Sure.
There's a lot of stuff on Mars that they don't tell you. There's lots of water on Mars. All the oceans on Mars are still there. You've been told that there's no oceans there anymore. No, those oceans are still there. They're just frozen solid. That's all, because in the summertime, the temperature drops to 150 degrees below zero at night, and that's in the summertime. In the wintertime, it drops to as much as 230 degrees below zero. So we have methods of accumulating water. We have actual factories and water treatment plants and stuff. There's this one building that I saw one time that it's about 20 stories tall. It's triangular. Each of its 3 sides is about 1.5 miles in length. And for lack of a better way to describe it, what it looks like is a giant waterbed mattress. But these, we put the water through this purification process. We have to get the salts out of it because it's basically sulfuric acid. We have to clean that out.
What about pyramids? I want to know what do you know about pyramids? What is their purpose of pyramids, and why is there so many pyramids built? And is there pyramids on Mars, and is there pyramids on the backside of the moon that you know of, or anything like that? What do they do?
Oh yeah, that's us. You know, the pyramids on Giza were built to honor me. You know, I don't know if you realize that, but those pyramids were not built by the Egyptians. Those pyramids were built thousands and thousands and thousands of years before the Egyptians came around. I mean, the Sphinx itself used to be a lion's head. But some pharaoh 3,000 years ago or 5,000 years ago, whatever, he thought he was God, so he had his stonemasons go out there and carve his face where the lion's head used to be. That was their custom anyway. They always did that.
And is there...
Whenever they...
I'm going to keep asking